Hello, everybody. Russell Hill with another episode of WTF, and that's what the fixed ops to you. Also have my co-host, Charity Dunning, who's our Chief Marketing Officer. Charity, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And welcome to another awesome episode. Today, let me get my glasses on so I get this right. We have Cory Gilbert and Lucas LaFontaine with Infinity Energy. We're going to be cutting it up and going back and forth, talking about all kinds of really interesting things. So strap in and get ready for an awesome WTF. So Cory and Lucas, tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do to get this thing started.
Hey, everybody. So Cory Gilbert, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer over here at Infinity Energy. We've been around for 8 years, specializing in the battery storage movement, as well as the solar movement and EV charging movement, as electrification has been kind of spread out across the state. So that's what we specialize in.
Excellent. Lucas, tell us about you.
Afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Lucas LaFontaine. I'm our Director of Business Development over here at Infinity. I primarily oversee our commercial and new construction division, helping businesses understand how to evolve with the new infrastructure. I might be EV or avoiding those high utility rates. We're here to help them specialize of getting solar and renewable forms of energy storage on their businesses to reduce their overall expenses.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So do me a favor. One of you, both of you, how do you actually envision EV changing the automotive industry? Tell us a little bit about what your vision is, what you see, and how what changes.
Yeah, what a movement that's going on, right? You watch the Super Bowl and you're like, every manufacturer out there is bragging about what EV they have and what's going on, and mine's cooler than yours, right? I mean, we see it everywhere, and it might not even be available. But hey, get on the list, right? And so we're really seeing that, and we've been in the higher markets of renewable policy, of the Californias, the Texas, the Floridas, Colorados, all these states that are really getting into the mix, and we're seeing electrification really take flight, especially even from a federal level and down to a state level. Federal, we're seeing this new infrastructure bill.
Sure.
We're seeing, EV charging infrastructure to facilitate what they're trying to accomplish. And so we think, obviously there's about a 4% adoption right now. Tesla's running the mix. Now these auto manufacturers are really wanting to jump in and take a piece of it as the new generation kind of jumps in. And now they're saying that 2022, there's about an 8% adoption rate. So we're going to see this dramatic climb in the next 5 years where EVs are going to be a big majority of auto dealerships.
So when you're talking about like charging stations, stuff like that, I know dealerships are getting outfitted. I've heard some rumors like with Ford, they can't leave after a service unless they're at least 85% full or something along those lines. And what about charging stations, as people travel and stuff like that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a ton of grid infrastructure that is focused on EV charging, right? How do you take a car to get it from California to New York? How's that going to happen?
Yeah.
Where are we going to go? And right now, we're all used to having gas stations to be able to fill up our cars. And as we transition into an electric vehicle mindset, that same concept has to happen. There has to be places for these vehicles to go. And what we're seeing is the car dealerships want them to be that destination center, right? You're going across America, there's those car dealerships and service centers already that you can stop by and have the ability to charge up and keep continuing on that road set.
That makes so much sense as a replacement for gas stations. Or for charging stations is going to a dealership instead, because those are speckled all across the United States. What message do you have for dealerships right now about, are you trying to get out to dealerships right now about EV and about EV charging within the next 5 to 10 years?
Try Lucas.
Great question. What we're trying to have them understand is preparing for what is to come. When we look at the electrical vehicle situation, the cost of electricity to get a car from 0 miles to 300-mile range is a burden to that dealership itself. And having that infrastructure inside, well, that's why we have the solar panels. That's why we have batteries, storage, to become our own independent utility and provide a cost haven for the consumers and the businesses themselves to be efficient, right? That's the entire idea here, is to be self-sustainable, to have a destination for customers to return, to get those additional services in the future for their vehicles and charge up and continue down the road. So we're meeting and talking with these dealerships and owners themselves to have that mindset change. We're not just selling vehicles anymore. We're providing a service to these customers after they acquire their EV vehicle that's going to continue on.
You know, that makes me think that Charity alluded to it just a minute ago. So we know we're not going to have any problem getting gas for our vehicles right now, traveling wherever we want to travel. Do you see a slow transition? Do you think that EV charging stations will be take the adoption with gas stations as well to accommodate both? Do you see that? And then other types of strategic partnerships like that, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it from EV charging brands, right? You have the charge points, the Electrify Americas, the Tesla charging stations, where the manufacturers themselves are going to start participating in those destination charging locations.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I just saw a video, and it was who knows if it's a fake video or not. But I saw a video, and I think it was in California, and there was 2 lines of Teslas waiting for charging stations. In a supermarket, complex, huge supermarket complex. I mean, is that kind of stuff really happening in places, like California, places where electric vehicles are really big? As a matter of fact, we were talking about this right before we began, that I recently heard as well, that 25% of all sales in California are Tesla vehicles. And of course, they, unlike a typical franchise advertising, they don't even do that. EVs becoming very, very, very big, but the infrastructure is going to take quite a while, right? Or no?
It's being deployed, and then Cory has a very interesting concept behind what is going to happen towards the green garage. And I would actually invite him to kind of speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think, as this next generation comes into the mix, and they're looking for a renewable solution, but they're also looking for an experience. And so these auto manufacturers are requesting to the auto dealerships to really look at what the culture, what the feel of what, they're calling it the green garage, right? How do we take the Apple store, when I look at a Mac, it's a sexy computer, right? And then if you take the auto garage mentality and then the coffee shop and you mix them all into one, you have this experience. And I think that it's going to appeal to the next generation, and they're calling it the green garage. And so
the green garage, huh?
The green garage.
Interesting. Yeah. So I have a quick question. When the owners of electric vehicles come into a dealership to charge, is that an expense to the customer or is it an expense for the dealership?
Great question.
It is. It's going to be dependent on what the dealership wants to offer. I mean, Tesla has been the first model that we're all very familiar with, that they have their supercharging stations. Early adopters had the ability to charge their vehicles for free, either at the dealership or their destination locations. And now that's changing, right? You can buy subscription services to be able to charge. The dealerships themselves can offer that as a service, but it's a cost burden that they're going to have to prepare for one way or another. You're having to power that. We're pulling electricity from the grid.
Sorry, Lucas. Yeah, and one of the things too is energy is usually a dealership's 3rd highest overhead expense.
Yeah.
Right? And so imagine putting that on steroids, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to happen for the consumer too. When they go to their home and they have a new EV car, that there's going to need to be a solution there. And we'll get into that, but it's going to start at the auto dealership where that things are going to need to evolve from how do they put, renewable in their space, like solar, the battery storage. These are solutions that are coming about. So because those services, like Russell said, the rising cost of energy, right? So what's going to happen is more EV cars are going to come to these auto dealerships and they're going to be selling them. But just like Russell said, that they're not going to leave this customer experience with a 0% charge on their vehicle. Right. And they're going to have to show off these cars and people are going to have to drive them. And then they're going to have to go back and recharge them. And then also you're going to have consumers coming back and they want to drive more people to their dealership in the future, be that gas station, call it. Mm-hmm. And so there is a solution and it's now, it's get that solar. You got a lot of flat space on your roof, then get that battery storage. So you're utilizing energy in a smart way. So it's, and then get that EV charging infrastructure built out, on your lot.
Yeah, I think the customer experience is really important. I have heard recently that, there's typical charging stations that some dealerships have, but there's a tremendous cost right now with the forward thinking franchises that are thinking ahead, and they're getting these super fast chargers. I've heard things like that as well. And of course, if a customer brings in a vehicle with an eighth of a tank of gas, the dealership doesn't go out and fill it up and hand it to them. And yet these are one of the things I've heard that is going to be a requirement as we think this forward. So one of the questions I have for both of you or whatever is, so are dealerships coming to you? Or are you being introduced to franchises or individual stores, et cetera? And I believe we all met at NADA. And how did that show go for you as well?
Yeah, and I'll answer that because I was there. What an incredible experience it was. I think that most auto dealers, my feeling when I was at the NADA, they don't know what's coming. They don't know what's hitting them, and they're, and I think it's going to come to a shock to some, but, I think it's by market too, that, certain auto dealerships in the heavy EV adoption is going to need to move quicker than other states. Right. But the feeling was, I felt like I was one of the only renewable energy companies out there. Right. And so we still are at that adoption rate, but we're seeing political policy and push and pressure mixed with every auto manufacturer that I went to on their presentation was just pushing, hey, this is a big section of what we're going to push.
A lot of politics involved there too, isn't there?
Yeah, so there's a lot of education that people are kind of warming up, but we're still at that early phase right now. But I think it's going to ramp up a lot quicker than people think.
Mm-hmm. And I think Cory's hitting the nail right on the head there. There's a ton of pressure that the dealerships and even us as consumers aren't really wrapping our head around. How are we going to get from consuming combustion engine vehicles for decades to now transitioning over to this electric vehicle mindset? What is that going to do? How is that going to change our lives? I have an electric vehicle, and traveling from Northern California to Southern California in my gas car would take 5 or 6 hours. In our electric vehicle, takes us anywhere between 8 and 12 hours because of that stopping portion behind it. And what are we going to have to understand to the burdens that every single neighbor, every single business having to have this electrification process? And California is mandating that commercial businesses are going solar. They mandated that residential homeowners go solar. These auto manufacturers are pushing this EV agenda, and dealerships and franchisors are going to have that electrification process as a part of their facility. And there is still a education side behind it. There's not a massive adoption yet, but we're going to see that table flip very quickly because we see the political climate pushing. self-sustainability. We're going to electric. We're trying to get away from oil and gas. And that train is not slowing down.
Do you guys have data on some of those numbers on how quickly adoption will take place?
Cory alluded to it earlier. I mean, over the last year, we had about a 4% adoption of EV vehicles, and that's forecasted to double in the next year. If we look on EV vehicles that are deployed, there's roughly about 2025. Auto manufacturers are going from 2025 vehicles to over 300 EV vehicles available for consumers. So just that mindset, the more options that we have, the different price points, the different brands, it's now going to open up a greater ability, because we all have preference, right? We all want to choose the vehicle that we drive.
That's
and
right.
why some have shied away from it is either price point or it just doesn't call to them.
Yeah. Well, I hear what you're saying. You talked about your drive time almost double because you have to stop and charge. Okay. And a lot of people are out on that, and they know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. As a matter of fact, at NADA, I visited one gentleman named Glenn Lundy. I don't know if you guys have heard of him or not, but anyway, he was talking about how technology and things have evolved from 1922 to 2022 over the last 100 years. And his comment to follow that up was that in the next 5 years, we're going to advance 100 years. It's happening faster and faster and faster. But it's like some of the things, we're not going to all figure it out here, but some of the things we're talking about, you got the charging stations, you need fast chargers, set up the proper infrastructure. There's a lot of safety mechanisms that go into play if something happens, particularly service departments are kind of freaking out. What are they going to do? And it's not like it's going to happen overnight like that, but they're thinking about that kind of stuff. And there's pluses and minuses to both. So there's a lot of chatter out there in a lot of different areas. And do you get hit with that same chatter too?
I like that. We do.
Go ahead, Cory.
I think it's like anything that has been in the past, right? I think they're comparing, and what I'm hearing, and I truly believe it, is it's like the cell phone. I mean, look at the cell phone and the adoption rate. It was probably painful to start, somebody that had a cell phone and nobody else had a cell phone. It's a painful experience, right? You can only call maybe one or two people. Then I remember getting text messages that do you guys remember the roaming days? It was roaming. I would get a text message. I would get charged per text. And then I'd also get charged for calling somebody outside of a city. And so these challenges are there. I mean, it's it's now we're starting to we're going to figure this out, and we're going to get past that. I think we're past the whole, one person has a cell phone and nobody else has them. It's starting to adopt a lot quicker than we think. And I just wanted to go into the stats. Ford by 2022 has new EV models of 40 new EV models. I mean, that's crazy. BMW by 2025 is going to have 15 to 25% of their car manufacturer. It's going to be EV cars.
That's incredible.
Some other ones is GM. They're going to have 30 new EV models by 2025. Hyundai will have 29 new EV models. Mazda, looks like they're behind. Stellantis will have 38%. Volkswagen will have 20% adoption by 2025. So this is just a huge momentum. And I think it's just going to be a common car that we're going to see out there. It's not going to be Tesla. It's going to be, oh, look, that's, it's a very common thing to see an EV car.
Yeah, they were the risk takers. They were the pioneers. They were the visionaries, not that what you guys are doing and everybody else following suit. It's just, Elon just had a lot of damn money, man.
And he's popular. He's very popular.
And it's, popular and controversial and all that kind of stuff. But that's how things happen. So and I don't even think we're not even we're still in infancy stages.
Russell brought it up a few minutes earlier, but we're big on the fixed ops side, service and parts. How would you say that EV is going to affect those profit centers of the dealership?
Perfect
Indeed.
question. That's why we're here. But to answer that question,
hold on, let me preface it. There's a lot of people because of the where we play as far as service parts and accessories. They're going to be hanging on every word you're fixing. I'm just saying. Okay.
Okay, I'll be careful with my words.
Well, everybody's concerned about it. They are.
Right.
Yeah. So our, and one of our ultimate goals here is to put more money back in the auto dealership's pocket. How do we become a profit center? But to answer that question is, this car's not going to need an oil change. It's not going to need all of these, things that go back. And so how do we actually create a revenue source for the auto dealers? And it goes back to that problem solution, right? So number one, okay, the auto manufacturers are going to push a bunch of EVs to these guys. Then now they got an electricity bill problem. Okay, how do we make a good customer experience? Well, there's a solution for that. Solar, battery storage, EV charging, get that infrastructure set up, start investing in that, create your green garage, right? Then the next problem is now they're going to go sell an EV to somebody, and there's two problems there. The problem is they lose their profit center because there's no oil changes, there's no fixes, all these things that the auto dealership wants. And then the second problem is that EV customer drives it to their house, and they're like, wait a minute, I need some type of infrastructure for my home now, right? Because I'm going to be charging this and having that experience. And so
let's hope they thought about that before they got it home. Anyway,
exactly. And I don't think they anticipate and understand the cost of electricity through the utilities, right? And with their in PG&E is in California, and they just increased the rates dramatically, right? And it's going up and up and up and up, and inflation's not helping. And so back to the basics here is renewable companies like Infinity Energy would like to be a revenue source to where we actually, by the battery storage and solar solution for their home, we actually give a kickback of profit back to the auto dealership.
I see.
So it's that one-stop shop experience of get your EV vehicle, get your home situated, and it's a profit center for the auto dealership. So that's kind of what we're looking at as this opportunity comes about.
Yeah, I've heard, because we do have EV landing pages now, and I've done some research. And I mean, they're still going to be recommending certain maintenance intervals at 3, 6, 12, whatever, come in, get things checked out. You got tires, because of the sheer torque. Most of them are low profile. They go through tires a lot quicker. They need to be rotating balanced. There are a lot of mechanical things that could potentially go wrong. So those are some ways that I think that some of that will be offset. But here's what I'm sitting here thinking. So the ones that are just all freaking out right now about how are they going to make money? How are they going to survive? Well, I think if they focus just raising 10 to 15 or perhaps even 20% and stopping the defections that they have at 36 months, that will more than compensate for the lack of money or the intervals that somebody might be coming in for routine oil change, rotate, and balance. What say you?
Russ, I would agree with you. I agree with that. That's all I can say is I agree.
So for every franchise dealer, not my numbers, NADA, there are 16 non-franchise entities, okay, that are jockeying and have been while dealerships are sleeping at the wheel, because they understand what's been happening after the initial warranty period is up. And that the Valvoline, Firestone, Goodyear, I can go on and on and on. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. What are they going to be doing about EV?
You're talking about the F&I side,
No, I'm talking about maintenance, or do you hear scuttle talk out there about what they might be able to do to make it look like they're a certified EV, come and charge, whatever, breaks or whatever happens.
You're talking like the Midases of the world, right?
Those types. Yeah.
They're going to have to. My father-in-law, he owns an auto repair shop, a small little auto repair shop in Lodi, California, and he has to wrap his mind around this too. Right, he typically gets the clunkers that come in. They need the engine swap, the transmission, and that's changing. He's having to spend a ton of money on infrastructure for new components to just read the computers of these new cars. The staffing and certifications from the employees have to change, and to get those certifications, a lot of those manufacturers have you take classes and tests and
Okay.
to be able to service their vehicles. So those are steps that these smaller garages are going to have to start to make that transition to.
Okay.
Because yes, you're going to have the big players. You're going to have the original manufacturer dealership to go to. But us as consumers are always looking for the best deal possible. And
Mhm.
we know that the smaller garages can typically offer the same service at a more effective rate. So they're
yeah,
just as the big guys, they're going to have that same mentality, right? They're going to
Sure.
have to, how do you prepare your infrastructure and be independent, right? We're talking about how do you create a new profit center for yourself? It's not so much as a new profit center, but more of the sustainability, right?
Yeah.
Your most expensive option, in my opinion, is to do nothing, to just sit back.
I agree.
You're leaving money on the table. Either way you look at this, either you're a consumer and you're going to do nothing at your home, or you're a business and you're not going to change and adopt to being more independent and prepare yourself for the EV side. That's
Absolutely.
how they're going to make their new profits.
I see. I think I may have preempted and cut you off and led you down a different direction. But back to Charity's original question, that has to be, I would suspect with everything that we hear, that every dealership you approach, that somebody's asking you those questions. And you may have been started to talk about it, and I went off a different wormhole. What do you tell them? How are they going to make money? Don't say
The car dealerships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
just how their services are going to change, right? We can't help control how they're going to charge for their services, but we can help is to keep money in their pockets. These added expenses. The average electric vehicle will cost anywhere between $6 and $10 a day to charge, right? How many vehicles do they have on their showroom floor? How
Sure.
often are they having people come in? That's a massive cost expenditure that they're not planning for. So how do you eliminate that? How do you return your money, right? We're talking about ROIs here. The average solar system on a car dealership, let's say it's $1 million investment for them. The solar energy storage, you're independent. It pays for itself in 3 years. Most of these big car dealerships are here longer than 3 years. When we look at their bottom line and the money that we can help put back into their business, we're talking plus 7 figures on a regular basis over that lifespan of that solar system. And that's how we're helping them wrap their mind around how are we going to make money as this change happens. It's not so much additional revenue, it's more of keeping money in your pocket.
And Lucas, I want to chime in on that on the servicing and side. One thing that Infinity Energy is willing to do is be a profit center to where between $750 to $3,000 per EV customer, right? That goes solar and battery storage gets a kickback to the auto dealership. So that's something that we want to do, right? Not to say that everybody else does, but we're going to do that, So now you got a reoccurring revenue there. And then what we're going to be on the commercial side is a solution, like Lucas said, we're going to offset these additional costs that are coming to you, right? So which ultimately just puts more margin in your pocket, right? Because if you don't do anything, you're just going to eat away your margin, because those auto manufacturers are going to say, hey, these EVs are coming, right? You need to facilitate it if you're going to sell. Yeah. And so you got to start, you got to start now. And then also a huge incentive right now is that the federal tax incentive is 26% right now. And it's going to go down to 10% in the next couple of years. So the auto dealerships that get these solar systems on need to act. Well, and the people we have in the administration right now, the Biden administration, I think this tax credit is going to extend, right? I don't think it's going to go away. They've got initiatives, they've got the infrastructure bill, they've got stuff coming around, but right now there's nothing in place. So it is a good incentive right now to get things going.
It's our goal at Infinity to be a partner to these dealerships, right? We want to help them save money and put money back in their pockets, and also be able to provide them those additional customers and revenue services. We want to be able to scratch their back and them scratch ours. Right? Every time they sell an EV vehicle, we have the ability to support that customer to get set up to move forward, and vice versa. We have customers that look for EV vehicles, that have solar, that are ready to take that next change. And we want to be able to have that cohesive relationship between these dealerships to keep moving and progressing this change with this industry forward.
Yeah. There's a
Now,
lot
do
of,
you guys have a good case study of a dealership or someone you've worked with that have embraced all these changes and the outcome of that?
Yes, we do. We have a handful of dealerships that I've worked with in the past that have adopted and started with one of their dealerships. Most of these big car dealership groups are a sector, right? It's one owner that owns 10 or 15 different dealers, right? They own a Ford, they own a Chevy, they own an Audi, a BMW. And they've started with one, and they start to see how that is reducing their capital expenditures for that business itself and putting money back in their pockets and adopting and just making that change. Not to mention, we've said it the entire time, the manufacturers are now forcing their hand to these car dealerships to that change. So we're here to educate them to not be scared of this process, right? When these changes are forced to a business, hey, knocking on your door, here's an additional $600 million cost that you guys have to incur as to be a licensed dealer. How are they going to offset that? And I mentioned before, the average return for these car dealerships is that 3.5 year time frame for this type of investment.
yeah, you're dealing with car dealerships. It's kind of tough to think long game like that, because it's like, dude, I want it now.
Yeah.
And but I get it. That stuff's going on out there, and it's quite interesting. There is a lot of incentives right now. It's depending on what part of that you're talking about. I guess the incentives are range, but I see that it's just all a matter of demand and supply. If consumers are wanting it, obviously we see a big increase. I know that when I was walking back from the Central Hall to the North Hall, it was just a bunch of EV stuff in there, and you commercials and all kinds of stuff. So it's certainly talked about. And I think some people think, or they don't actually know how to think through. You need to let them know, obviously, what you do about the return over time, but the initial expense. And I'm sure you give them suggestions and ideas, or places they can go, or what they have to do for the subsidies and stuff like that. Or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of our educational and proposal process with them is walking them through what is available, either it be for a business or for a homeowner. We provide them with how these incentives or tax credits or depreciations work.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're not CPAs. We can't guarantee a customer or a business exactly how that's going to pan out for them. We can provide them the information and ultimately empower them to consult their tax accountant.
So this what Charity was saying just a minute ago. I mean, you said you had several. Do you have one example? I mean, it would have to be so early into the adoption process, et cetera, of what it takes to get their money for the co-oping and or subsidizing, et cetera. But certainly you don't have people who've been on 3 years, do you, by now? Do you have somebody that you can talk about that would be like a best practice type of thing? Somebody has gone through the hoops and stuff like that, by chance?
It's a great question. Yes and no. One specifically, it's going to be difficult because the adoption has been more recent than anything.
Sure.
There's a Ford dealership that I can speak of here in Northern California that we went up and we put solar up on their roof, and they were spending anywhere between $35,000 to $40,000 a month in electricity costs because their main profit center is that service bay. You look across that service bay and you have 40 or 50 bays that are constantly running, the air pumps, the lifts. They were able to come in, reduce that $60,000 a month bill to about $10,000 a month. And it's twofold. We talk about solar and energy storage. Solar does one component behind it by offsetting your kilowatt hours, but energy storage is there because the sun's not always out at night. And then you have demand charges. Without getting into the massive details of how electricity costs work, you take a car dealership's bill, that $60,000 bill, 50% of that is going to be called demand charges here in California. In other states, it's going to be called power cleansing or power quality charges. And what that is it's a tax and a fee that they slap on based off of
no doubt.
single
doubt.
50,
Taxes and fees, right? Got it.
They're
California,
always
hello. Yeah.
They're always going to find a way. But there are ways to mitigate it, right? They look at a single 15-minute block of energy consumption, and let's call it 100 kilowatt hours for a single 15-minute block. They take that 100 kilowatt hours, and then they'll charge you $40 a kilowatt hour for that single 15-minute interval. That's where that energy storage portion comes in to offset those spikes of energy. And we're always in a constant battle, right?
Sure.
Us as consumers versus the utilities are always in a constant battle back and forth of what we think is fair and what we think is right. And here in California is a great example where that doesn't make, there's an acronym, Pacific Gas and Extortion, PG&E, right?
Yeah. Hello, right? Got it. Yep. I think everybody knows that. So it was great. So the renewable, the storage, etc. I get. What about safety?
Safety is very important. Cory, I'd like to speak.
It's on you, Cory. Bring it, brother.
I think obviously, like anything, safety will be addressed, and safety will be if more and more vehicles are out there and more facilities are facilitating them. Safety it's just going to be a big thing, and it's going to get better. It has to get better. Nobody wants a big massive fire somewhere. So there will be protocols, there will be OSHA things, and so don't have too much on that topic.
Yeah, well, one of the things, again, we were talking about before we started this, that's going to be an important discussion as well. And, talking about what on the service side of things, and I get, and this has been extremely valuable information. I think a lot of people are just going to eagerly listen to get, because it's all about education, right? The more you're educated, the better you can make intelligent decisions, et cetera. Or maybe I have certain thoughts about one way of viewing it. And because of just the conversation that Cherry and I had with you today, I have different information now. So, things change, right? Et cetera. People were against EV and now they're for EV. It's becoming more affordable. I get all that. When we're talking about safety, obviously that's important, but there's dealerships all over the country are crying for advisors and technicians because of the stigma or the preconceived notions of a grease monkey, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. And then you're talking about these new people coming in the market, right? Gen Z, Gen Yers. Okay. It's different than people that have been in the service side of things at franchise dealers for a long time. It's different because they don't want to work 10, 12, 14 hours a day. It's not necessarily all about the money. It's about convenience. It's about time. It's about feeling like they're a part of something. So they have to be dealt with in an entirely different way. Well, this also creates a lot of excitement, enthusiasm about these type of people, men and women, because women is a heavy focus in dealerships right now, bringing women into it because, the stigma associated with that. So there's a huge paradigm shift, and these people are coming in, they're thinking, wow, I could really get into like computers and technology and electric vehicles and stuff like that. So it might create a whole new subset of people that are coming in, or what they thought about being in a service department as a technician versus what it is now, particularly people going to college, getting a degree, they got a 4 or 6 year degree, and they come out of school heavily debt laden. And 92% of them don't even work in the chosen field that they spend all that money that they're going to be paying for years and years and years to come. So this looks like a really attractive side of thing with vocational schools and things like that. So I think there's a lot for for people that are listening, that might be an enticement, or even advisors, having the knowledge and expertise, talking about safety and charging and all that kind of stuff, where right now they can't talk about it intelligently. And I don't know about you, but I think most people, because of the information highway, right? You just go ask Dr. Google. Dr. Google's got an answer for everything. So everybody's doing their research and they have all these questions. That actually most people today, when they're going to buy an electric vehicle, they know more about the electric vehicle than the person that's actually selling it to them.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Now, the only thing that I would implore customers and businesses alike is just educate yourself.
Okay.
Right? That's what we're here to do, is to help them through this process, that they're not alone, right? This is always evolving and changing, but there are resources, and Infinity Energy has that ability to help them answer a lot of these tough questions.
Yeah, we covered a whole lot in the hour we had. So
One more thing, guys.
Yeah.
If people want to get a hold of you,
that's what I was going to
how
say.
would you like them to do that?
Yeah. How do they get a hold of you?
Call Lucas. Yeah. So, I mean, we can leave our information with Russell in Charity, and we'll get some emails and also some, but it starts with, our process is simple with auto dealerships. It's a conversation with Lucas, and then we just take it step by step from there.
Listen, I think that what you guys are doing is very, very important. I learned a lot today, and I'm sure a lot of the audience did as well. So we have Cory Gilbert and Lucas LaFontaine, and with Infinity Energy. And when it comes to renewable storage, charging, you guys are the ones they want to go to, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right, I need a thumbs up from you, Lucas, too. Come on, baby. All right, there we go.
Here.
There
I
we
got the
go.
double thumbs up.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Cory and Lucas, thank you.
Thank you.
This is some really awesome information. And I know all of you out there, if you have any questions, it's going to be posted, their email and how you get a hold of them and phone numbers and stuff like that. I encourage you to reach out to them, particularly on this side. If you're in the early adoption process and you want to check somebody out, it sounds like Infinity Energy is the place you want to go for that kind of stuff. So we certainly give them the double thumbs up. Be sure and like us, like them, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you see us. And we hope that you got as much out of this as Charity and I did, and Nico, with this particular episode. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Again, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
The time has finally come. Customized. Unlimited. Dealership branded videos for fixed operations. Introducing Prestige, the comprehensive, interconnected, personalized video marketing platform. Automatic instant distribution to social media. Create and distribute as many videos as you want, as often as you want, for one low price. We promise no setup fees, no installation fees, no obligation or long-term contracts, and you can cancel anytime. Prestige integrates into existing systems and is fully managed by us, with no logins or passwords required. Contact us for a demo.